Right? So, out in the cold, right? That's what we're doing?
Horror stories of dating.
This would be a terrible story about dating. So, I actually ran this story past one of the people that is one of the main characters, and he asked me politely to refrain from identifying his actual relationship to me or using his name. So I'm going to try not to mess that up. So a number of years ago, a group of friends of mine, very, very close friends, got together to celebrate. It's beyond me right now what we were celebrating. I'm not sure if it was my first marriage or, which there's only been one, I think that's going to stay the same. Or when I bought into the business that I own, or what it was, but it was a time for celebration. And, you know, being the 20-somethings that we were, we went to the bar. We went to University Grill, and we celebrated. And then we went down to Orky's, when that was still a thing, R.I.P., and we celebrated. You could smoke back then in Orky's, so it was grungy and fun. Met some new people. You know, we're having a blast. It was just a fantastic evening. And oftentimes on nights like that, you would assume that if you just call it quits and go home, everything's going to be all right. So we did that. And we thought everything was going to be all right. So me and my one dear friend, who we'll call John, and my other friend Ryan, go back to my apartment, and the rest of the crew had partied out and made the correct decision to not continue on that evening. We did not. So we went back to my apartment, we were playing music, and we were playing cards, and we were laughing about how inebriated John had become, because at the time, again, without the foresight, it was fun, you know? It was a lot of fun, and it was funny. His picture actually still comes up when he calls me from that evening. So I can tell you that on this late January night, he was wearing a pink t-shirt with a white long-sleeve undershirt and jeans. And he was not prepared to be outside. However, John has a history of wandering off. Another note, actually, that's very important is John's not from Shippensburg. So at about 3:30 in the morning, Ryan and I realized that John is no longer with us. My apartment is not that big. We very quickly discovered that he must have wandered off. So out to the streets we go, trying to call him. He answers, he hangs up. He answered once. I think we called him like 20 times. He answered once, and we heard some scuffling and some breathing. I trust this man, like, implicitly. At no point did I fear anything seriously was wrong. Maybe a mistake, maybe not. But, so we go out into the streets of Shippensburg late January, and like Hansel and Gretel were screaming out John's name, peeking down alleys, behind dumpsters. We didn't see one soul. I think somebody else had mentioned how quiet it gets when there's just a little bit of snow in the air. Shippensburg isn't that big. And we were all over this damn town. Looking, I mean, I probably explored more of Shippensburg that night than I have in like the aggregate 15 years that I've lived here. Because we were on a search and rescue mission. And Ryan and I were in constant contact. Did you find him? No. Did you try and call him? Yeah. And I've known John for a long time, and it was cold. It was like, 25 degrees out, similar to this evening. And you can imagine that without a coat, or just with a coat, that it would be very cold to be outside. And again, I don't know if it were the drinks that caught up with me and made me want to stop. And Ryan said, no, we're going to continue. And that just still to this day warms my heart at his willingness to give the rest of his, at that point, early morning away to try and find my dear friend John. But I had been through this before. Like I said, he had a history of wandering off. So we decided to call it quits. And I talked Ryan into just going home. I told him I'd let him know. You can't call the police at that point, and be like, so we got drunk and he wandered off. Help. They're not gonna, I'm liable to be arrested at that point for public drunkenness. So we left him. We left him out in the cold. And then I went home and I got about 45 minutes to an hour. And I heard a knock at my door. And I opened it up and I was not in a good place physically. And definitely not in a good place to be having a conversation with a police officer. And I opened the door and he said, "Are you Mitchell?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Does this belong to you?" I kid you not, Lee Kaufman was an amazing police officer in this town. and he got me out of a couple jams whenever I was a student and as a business owner. This was my one, I'm just a citizen and you're helping, So he says, "Does this belong to you?" And I put my head around the corner and there's John kind of And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, you're lucky that he finally figured out which house was yours, because I was about to go check him in up at Carlisle." And I'll have to tell you that John was nothing but respectful, and he said all the right things once he figured out what was going on. And I said, "What happened?" He said, "Well, I'm assuming that he couldn't find his way back here. Is that accurate?" And I said, "Yeah." Well, he found the one warm spot he could get to, which is the mail drop-off area at the post office. And he made a bed underneath the table to write out your envelopes on. And he scared the hell out of some old lady that was just trying to get some mail out at 6:30 in the morning. So when he was found, it was like, obviously you're in trouble. And got past that, and it's, "Where do you live?" And he's like, "Hagerstown." What the hell? So, all's well that ends well. That's my story. Thank you, guys.